The red banners are already creeping into every homepage and storefront, promising once-a-year deals long before Black Friday even arrives. But behind the bright signs, something more troubling is happening. In recent national surveys, more than half of American shoppers say they no longer trust the original prices printed above those discounts. And over 2/3 believe many holiday markdowns are engineered to look bigger than they truly are. And this year, the pressure is heavier than usual. Most households expect holiday spending to feel tighter, not easier, which makes the promise of a dramatic discount feel almost like a lifeline. Retailers know that. They know shoppers are stressed, watching every dollar hoping for relief in a season that keeps getting more expensive. So as the sale season accelerates, the question isn't, how big is the discount? It's, was this price ever real in the first place? Today we'll break down how to recognize a genuine bargain, how to spot the theatrics, and how to make sure your money works for you, not the other way around. 1. The era of the permanent sale. Walk into almost any store right now and you'll feel it immediately. The air is thick with promises. Red tags hang from racks as if someone rushed in overnight to rescue the entire country from high prices. 40% off, massive clearance, final markdown. These signs appear long before Black Friday, long before anyone has reason to lower prices, and long before the season actually begins. The country has grown so used to the glow of discount banners that a store without them feels almost unfinished, as if something is missing. Plenty of shoppers still get a small spark of excitement when they see a big percentage, but more than half also admit something feels off. It's strange to walk past the same shelf in September, then October, then November, and see the same limited-time markdown staring back at you. The number changes color, the font changes shape, the message stays the same. The discount never leaves. A real sale used to be an event. People planned for them. Stores prepared for them. Families looked forward to them. Today, the event looks more like a background hum. The modern retail landscape keeps every aisle dressed for a celebration that never truly arrives. The promise of a deal has lost its sense of occasion. It lingers always in view, always within reach, always claiming urgency without ever acting urgent. Inside the industry, this shift isn't treated as a mystery. Retailers have spent years studying the habits of stressed American households and the long shadow of rising costs. They know the country is budgeting harder, waiting longer between purchases, comparing more than before. Presenting full prices feels risky in a climate where shoppers expect a break. So companies build a new kind of pricing calendar, one where discounted becomes the baseline and regular price becomes a story told to justify the size of the markdown. Most people don't see the machinery behind that shift, but they sense the outcome sale signs look louder, bolder, taller, and somehow less meaningful. One week the sign says 30% off. The next week a new one appears shouting 40% off, even though the number on the sticker barely moves. The language changes, not the value. Shoppers walk past it again and again, noticing the repetition but not quite knowing what to call it. It's tempting to think this is generosity or early holiday spirit, but stores rarely adjust prices out of warmth. Endless discounts are a language of survival in a marketplace shaped by fast online competition, seasonal pressure, and a constant fear of losing attention. If everyone else is shouting sale, staying silent begins to look like surrender. This segment is only the surface of that story. There are deeper layers hiding beneath the red banners and the bold fonts. Behind every deal, there's an origin price, a reason that price was chosen, and a cycle that decides when it should rise or fall. Most shoppers never see that cycle. They only see the result, a permanent feeling of markdowns, as if the country somehow slipped into a year-round Black Friday. This is where awareness begins. Before asking what a deal means, it helps to notice how strangely common deals have become. And once that pattern becomes visible, a new question naturally rises. If everything is always on sale, what exactly is the full price anymore? We'll explore that answer in the next chapter. 2. What the law says versus what stores actually do. Most shoppers have stood in front of a sale sign that promised something bold and simple. Was $199. Now $99. The numbers sit there with an authority that feels almost official. The line through the old price tells a story of honesty, as if the store is showing you the truth behind the curtain. Yet if you pause for even a second, a quiet thought begins to surface. When was it ever $190? Most people never get an answer. Employees rarely know. Managers shrug. The sign remains confident and unquestioned. The law, interestingly, does have an answer to that question, though it's not one most Americans hear about. Regulations around pricing don't cover everything, But the rule around a former price is surprisingly clear. When a store shows a crossed-out price, the law expects that number to be something real, an amount the product was actually offered for, to real shoppers for a meaningful stretch of time. The intention is simple: a discount should reflect an actual drop, not a piece of fiction. But the distance between a rule and a habit can be wide. Over the years, retailers have learned how to position themselves comfortably in that space. They don't have to violate the law outright. They only need to understand where the edges are soft. A store can list a high regular price for a short period, so short that barely anyone remembers it. Once that's done, the now price suddenly looks generous. The markdown appears honest. Nothing technically breaks the rule, but the spirit of it collapses. Manufacturers contribute to this pattern in their own way. Many products arrive with an MSRP already printed or recommended an amount that rarely has anything to do with what people actually pay. Perfectly legal, widely used, and often inflated. Retailers then anchor their discount percentages to this number. Shoppers believe they've stumbled into a moment of luck, unaware the starting line was placed far behind where it belonged. The online world adds its own layer of theater. A countdown timer on a website might reset each morning. Only 3 left at this price can reappear every time the page loads. These signals stir urgency without promising anything factual. By the time a shopper realizes the trick, the purchase is usually complete, and the cycle repeats with someone else. Enforcement struggles not because the rules are invisible, but because the environment they regulate changes faster than expected. Retailers rotate price tags more often than agencies can track them. Sale calendars have become rolling systems, not one-time events that are easy to audit. Proving a deceptive former price requires looking at weeks or months of pricing behavior, and most people simply don't keep those records. The burden of proof weighs heavily on whoever tries to challenge the sign, and almost no everyday shopper has the time or evidence for that. All these moving pieces create a quiet effect. Shoppers assume the rules are being followed. They believe that if a sign says was $199, then at some point somewhere that must have been the case. It's a natural trust built over decades of thinking stores operate like neutral actors. Yet what's happening is something different. Modern discounting is less about reflecting a real drop in price and more about shaping what feels like a deal. It's a design, not an accident. That design influences behavior more than people realize. When you expect the law to guard you from misleading prices, you loosen your own guard. You assume the old number was honest, so the new one must be a bargain. The power of the discount comes not only from the lowered price, but from the belief that the crossed-out number once had weight. As more Americans grow uneasy with endless sales, a quiet awareness begins to form. If the rules exist, but the practice keeps drifting away from their purpose, then the real battle isn't only about what stores print on their tags. It's about how easily our minds accept the story those tags tell. And once that realization settles and another layer of questions emerges, if the law can't fully shield us, then what exactly pulls us toward these signs so effectively? 3. The psychology behind why fake deals still work. You don't need to stand in front of a sale sign for the pull to begin. Sometimes it starts long before that, when you're scrolling on your phone at night, half tired, half distracted. A banner flashes by with a bold number. You don't stop. You don't analyze it. Yet a small part of your mind files the message away. Hours later, or even days later, you walk past the same brand in a store, and something inside you lights up with a sense of familiarity. The feeling comes first, the logic comes later. Most shoppers never realize the decision was already halfway made before they even picked up the product. This is the quiet truth behind modern discount psychology. The brain reacts to patterns faster than it reacts to prices. A sale doesn't work because it is mathematically impressive. It works because it lands on instincts that evolved long before money or retail ever existed. One of the strongest forces shaping this instinct is anchoring. We think we compare prices, but we actually compare stories. A number once seen becomes the mental reference point. The crossed-out price turns into the real value in our minds, even if that value has no historical basis. The new price then feels satisfying simply because it is lower than the anchor. It's not the reduction that wins us over, it's the contrast. Urgency adds a second layer. Words that signal time pressure, today, now, last chance, activate a narrow band of stress that makes the brain lean toward quick decisions. It's not panic, it's not fear. It's a subtle physical cue that nudges us to act before we think too long. The discomfort of "maybe I'll miss it" presses against our desire for control. That tension makes the sale feel more meaningful than it truly is. Then comes reward. Humans are wired to chase small victories. A deal feels like a win even if the savings are modest. The brain releases a light spark of pleasure, the same kind that comes from guessing a trivia answer correctly or finding a shortcut home. In a world full of heavy news high bills and daily pressures, that moment of "I got the better end of the exchange" lands with surprising warmth. The item matters less than the validation it delivers. This effect grows stronger in the US holiday season. Budgets stretch thin, expectations rise. Families want to give generously without feeling the strain of overspending. People aren't just looking for gifts, they're looking for reassurance. A sale sign speaks to both needs at once: economic relief and emotional comfort. It tells a shopper they made a smart choice, that they're taking care of their family responsibly, that they didn't fall behind. The psychology of the holiday purchase is complex, but at its core, it's hopeful. Another part of the pull comes from simple exhaustion. Many Americans move through their days with more tasks than time. When the mind is tired, it leans on shortcuts, mental autopilot. Researching price history, comparing alternatives, or delaying the decision takes energy many people simply don't have. During those moments, the sale sign becomes a convenient signal. It tells the brain, you don't need to think. This is good enough. And in that state, good enough feels like a gift. Over time, this combination of emotion fatigue and instant reward creates a loop that strengthens without effort. You see a deal. You feel the rush. You buy. The brain rewards you with a sense of accomplishment. The memory settles. The next time, the feeling returns even faster. The brain isn't being fooled, it's being conditioned. Not by manipulation, but by repetition. None of this means shoppers are careless. It means they are human. The mind is built to conserve energy, avoid loss, and search for advantage. Retailers design around those instincts, not against them. A sale doesn't need to be deep or genuine to work. It only needs to activate the right pattern at the right moment. Understanding this psychology doesn't erase the appeal of discounts, but it changes the atmosphere around them. You start to notice the moments when urgency presses too hard, when the anchor seems suspiciously high, when the excitement feels out of proportion. That noticing is powerful. It gives you a small space between impulse and decision, a space where choice becomes clearer. And once you see the internal forces, the next natural question forms. How do stores build entire pricing systems around these instincts? How stores engineer the illusion of a deal. Long before any sales sign reaches your eyes, the work begins somewhere else entirely, in a meeting room, inside a pricing department where analysts stare at charts instead of shelves. They watch patterns of clicks, quiet dips in foot traffic, unusual surges in small ticket items, and subtle shifts in how long shoppers pause on certain products. None of this looks dramatic. It's spreadsheets, graphs, and tiny adjustments. Yet these small decisions eventually shape the entire shopping season. By the time the first sale banner appears, the design behind it is already weeks, sometimes months in motion. Modern retail doesn't rely on instinct. It relies on choreography. Every major chain has a playbook built around the same principle: a discount is more than a number. It's an experience. Price alone rarely persuades anyone. But a price paired with timing, framing, contrast, and motion can feel irresistible. That feeling is engineered not through deception, but through careful alignment between psychology and presentation. A central element in this system is signage strategy. Designers test dozens of layouts before a single card reaches the floor. They study how the eye tracks across color blocks, how high a shopper's gaze sits when tired, and which fonts communicate urgency without causing doubt. Bold digits catch attention. Softer text calms hesitation. It's a visual dialogue built to keep people engaged, shifting gently from curiosity to action without force. Sign rotation is another piece of the machinery. Retailers refresh the atmosphere more often than the prices themselves. A discount that looks familiar today appears new again tomorrow, simply because the surrounding language changes. Early access becomes seasonal savings, then extended offer, then last weekend, even when the figures barely move. The motion alone creates the impression of opportunity. Each update signals activity, and activity suggests the window for savings is moving, which nudges the shopper to move with it. Pricing structures follow a similar rhythm. Many product displays rely on a 3-tier setup: one item priced unusually high, one sitting in a normal range, and one touted as a deal. Most people settle on the middle or discounted option, not noticing that the high-priced item exists solely to stretch their sense of scale. It gives the deal height. Without saying a word, the display teaches the shopper which option is smart, reasonable, respectable. The entire effect works through contrast rather than argument. Another tool is the compare at reference point, a number that may draw from suggested retail prices, older regional data, or past season values. These figures don't need to match what people regularly pay, they just need to create context. When the frame is tall, the drop feels meaningful. Shoppers don't analyze the origin of the comparison, they respond to the shape of the gap. Online pricing adds still more layers. Algorithms adjust based on demand browsing history time and even small bursts of regional activity. A discount that appears tailored or timely may simply be the system reacting to patterns. Limited quantity labels refresh, timers reset, and banners shift in response to invisible inputs. Nothing about this requires trickery. The mechanics simply follow the logic of a marketplace where attention is scarce and competition moves quickly. During the holiday rush, these strategies intensify. Retailers understand the emotional pressure that builds around gifting, budgeting, and seasonal expectations. Discounts become less about offering dramatic cuts and more about offering reassurance. A shopper wants to feel that they're making responsible, thoughtful decisions. A well-timed deal provides that feeling. Even a small markdown placed in the right context can ease the tension between desire and affordability. It's important to see these tactics without suspicion. They reflect the realities of an industry where margins tighten and competition grows sharper each year. Stores aren't scheming, they're surviving. The language of constant savings is the marketplace's response to a consumer landscape defined by comparison, speed, and pressure. The design behind discounts is a product of adaptation, not malice. Viewed closely, a sale begins to look less like a standalone event and more like a coordinated structure, a composition of color, contrast, movement, and timing. The deeper you study it, the more obvious it becomes that the discount itself is only one piece of the performance. The rest is the staging that makes the moment feel rewarding. And once the architecture becomes visible, a new kind of awareness settles in an understanding that recognizing the difference between a crafted moment and a genuine opportunity is now part of being a modern shopper. The next chapter builds directly on that awareness. 5 How to tell a real deal from a fake one. Before any sale sign catches your eye, there's a small moment that happens almost automatically. You compare. You look at a discount, then instinctively check the one beside it. Maybe the numbers match, maybe the formatting matches. 2 red tags, same percentage, same bold typeface. They look interchangeable, yet one represents a real saving, and the other is a performance and illusion shaped by timing, pricing patterns, and presentation. That quiet split is where this chapter begins. A real discount has a certain steadiness behind it. The price lived a stable life before the drop. It moved normally, followed the rhythm of the market, and stayed anchored week after week. When the cut finally arrived, it felt intentional, not theatrical. The product didn't need a show, the markdown matched its history. The honesty is subtle but enough. You sense it almost the way you sense when a handshake feels genuine. Fake deals come from a different path. They appear after a sudden short-term jump that resets the baseline. A product that sold at a normal price for most of the month suddenly climbs for a day or two, then falls back down during the sale. It looks generous, it looks dramatic, but the only drama is the choreography behind the curtain. The deal exists only because the starting point was lifted. Depth is another tell. Real discounts rarely need theatrics. They sit in the range most shoppers intuitively recognize, 20%, 30%, maybe 40% when the season allows it. They feel believable. They feel like the product's real value is being honored, just lowered for a moment. Fake discounts often reach for bigger gestures. They use oversized numbers, heavy fonts, and loud framing to create a sense of urgency that doesn't match the item's worth. The bigger the noise, the smaller the substance. Consistency also matters. Real deals have a rhythm that doesn't shift every few days. The sign stays put. The dates hold. The phrasing remains the same. If the price changes, it changes once. If the promotion ends, it ends cleanly. Nothing drifts. Fake deals move like scenery in a stage play. One day it's holiday preview, the next it's weekend savings, then extended event, then final hours, while the actual price barely twitches. It feels busy because it's meant to feel busy. Movement itself becomes the message. Value is another compass. A real deal stands even without the sign. You look at the build quality, the materials, the specifications, the brand's long-term track record, and something lines up. You feel that even at full price, the product would be solid. The discount simply sweetens that logic. Fake deals often rely on the sign to carry the entire weight. Take away the percentage and the product collapses. Thin materials, fragile design, vague description. The markdown is the only thing giving it shape. There's also a quiet but reliable test. Would the item still feel worthwhile tomorrow? If the answer is yes, you're likely seeing a genuine price. The value holds even when the rush fades. If the item loses its appeal once the urgency dissolves, the discount was doing the work, not the product. This small pause breaks through the engineered pressure that many holiday promotions depend on. During major sales seasons, these distinctions matter more. Budgets stretch thinner. Travel gifts and family gatherings compete for space on the same ledger. Retailers know shoppers want relief, a sense that they're making smart choices, not reckless ones. Real deals provide that relief. Fake ones borrow the language of savings but rarely offer the substance. The stakes rise because shoppers feel the pressure to get it right. There is a simple way to stay steady. Watch the behavior of the price, not the volume of the sign. Notice whether the discount seems anchored or improvised. Scan how often the signage shifts. Look for products that would remain appealing even without a discount. Favor items whose value you can explain to yourself without using the percentage as the first argument. These are subtle filters, but they cut through noise faster than any banner. The more you observe, the more the signals separate. What once looked like a wall of identical red tags begins to sort itself. Some prices carry truth, others carry performance. The difference reveals itself once you stop focusing on the brightness of the promise and start watching the pattern behind it. And when that pattern becomes familiar, the season feels less overwhelming. Noise turns into structure. Pressure softens. You begin to see the landscape as it is, not as the signage wants it to appear. That shift prepares you for something even more important, knowing how to protect your wallet in a season built on speed emotion and expectation. 6. How to keep your wallet safe. There's a moment many people experience, usually in the late days of November. You're planning expenses for the coming week when a quiet thought slips through almost like a tug on the sleeve of the January bill. It isn't fear and it isn't a loud warning. It's simply a small grounding note that reminds you every burst of excitement carries a responsibility that follows. From that moment on, you're no longer just looking at discount signs, you're thinking about protection. Protecting your wallet during sale season isn't the same as depriving yourself or rejecting joy. It moves in a different direction, keeping your own tempo while everything around you pushes you to move faster. The discount season is built on speed, built on countdown alarms, built on numbers that flash bright and urgent. Within all that noise, protection starts inward with anchors that stop you from being pulled into someone else's rhythm. The first anchor lies in how you look at an item before you look at the discount attached to it. A product has its own inherent value whether or not a shiny deal banner is slapped on top. When you already have a personal price reference, not from the sign but from memory experience or past browsing, you stand firmer. A discount no longer feels like a command. It becomes simply information. And information can't control you if you keep it in its proper place. The second anchor is pace. Discount signs are crafted to create tension, but every purchase has a small pause built into it, a breath so brief most shoppers ignore it. When you reclaim that pause, even for a few seconds, you take back the right to choose. The red numbers return to their true function, an invitation, not an instruction. Once your mindset settles, the next layers of protection become practical. One of the simplest yet most effective tools is the 3-price rule: trust, no discount. Until you've seen that item at 3 different prices, different days, different stores, different platforms. Those prices form the horizon line of the product. And once you see the horizon, you know whether the wind is real or just the store's own fan blowing in your direction. Another layer sits in lifespan. Ask one clear question: how long will this last, and does that lifespan outweigh the money I'm saving today? If the lifespan is shorter than the value of the discount you're buying, 1 moment of savings followed by 3 rounds of replacement. At that point, the deal isn't a benefit, it's a cost disguised as kindness. Some situations require looking beyond the immediate glow. Items with steep discounts but mandatory add-ons, filters, batteries, accessories. Software extended warranties are cheap upfront but expensive across the years that follow. Real protection means seeing total cost, not just the cost at checkout. Finally, there are the financial boundaries, the lines you draw long before entering any sales event. When a spending cap is set in advance, no discount has the authority to push you past it. When each category, gift, household, personal upgrades, has a firm ceiling, you don't drift toward purchases that weren't meant for this season. When you have a list of allowed items before you leave the house, each discount becomes a simple verification. Does it fit the list or does it belong to someone else's agenda? The sales season won't slow down. The signs won't dim. The notifications won't stop arriving. But when these layers of protection are in place, your pace is no longer dictated by the store's pace. We've covered a lot in this video, and if you're still here, thank you for staying with me through every layer of this maze. Sale season has a way of making everything feel louder and faster than it needs to be. Prices flash, clocks tick, and the promise of saving money can easily turn into pressure to spend it. But once you understand how the system works, the cycles, the triggers, the illusions, and the few moments of honesty that still remain, the noise becomes easier to read. The coming weeks will be filled with more notifications, more banners, more last chance deals. Some of them will be real opportunities. Many will only look that way. So take a moment, breathe, and prepare yourself before the rush begins. A clear plan, a steady mind, and a little patience go farther than any headline discount. Value isn't found in the brightest sign, it's found in choosing with intention.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.